All right, anatomy students, we're back here in room 227, West Clermont High School, and we're talking about the integumentary system, and today we're going to focus on the dermis. So this video lesson is going to be about the layer of skin underneath the epidermis, and that is going to be the dermis. And we'll talk also a little bit about the layer under the dermis, which would be the subcutaneous layer or hypodermis. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so today we're going to talk about the dermis. The previous lesson, we discussed the epidermis, and remember the prefix epi means upon. So the epidermis is the layer of skin that is going to rest on top of the dermis, and the dermis is going to be what we will focus on for today. The dermis is composed of connective tissue containing collagen and elastic fibers. Hopefully we remember that from our tissues unit. It is composed of two regions. Now the line that separates these regions is not as distinct as the layers of the epidermis, but I will show you where the boundaries are depending on the section of skin. So the most superficial of the two layers is called the papillary region, and it lies just below the epidermis and consists of loose areolar connective tissue. It will contain thin collagen and elastic fibers. This is where we will also find the dermal papillae, and I will point out what and where the dermal papillae are when we get to the appropriate slide. You will also find in the papillary region corpuscles of touch and free nerve endings. The second deepest, or the deepest layer of the dermis, is called the reticular region. It consists of dense, irregular connective tissue, will also contain collagen and will have elastic fibers. We will find adipose cells. Again, that's the tissue that stores fat. Embedded within this layer, we will find the hair follicle. We will find various nerves and nerve endings and other corpuscles. We will find sebaceous, or the oil glands, and we will also find the sudoriferous, or sweat glands. And depending on where we are in the body, there are two kinds of sweat glands, and we'll talk about those in the not too distant future. Tears or excessive stretching in the region cause stretch marks. So if you've ever seen, or maybe you have, I know I have a few stretch marks up on my chest from my days of lifting weights. They're up where my pectoralis major muscle comes across above my armpit there. I have a few back when I used to lift a lot, and it is from stretching of the reticular region of the dermis. So here is what we will call the cube of skin, and there are multiple things going on here. So where we see the break between the papillary region and the reticular region is where we go below the dermal papillae. All right. The dermal papillae are these projections right here. We see this area here, this area here, and this area here. Papillae are another name for finger-like projections. And we see some here, and over in this area, we have pulled away the epidermis, and it shows us where the dermal papillae actually extend up into and kind of Velcro link together, or puzzle piece together, with the extensions of the epidermis. So this region of the dermis that contain these projections, those projections again are called dermal papillae, and this is will demarcate the papillary region. So from here up is going to be the papillary region. And you can see that is indicated by this diagram. Below, from here down to here, is all going to be the reticular region. Underneath the dermis, we have the subcutaneous layer, also called the hypodermis. Remember, sub means below. Hypo also will mean below. So think of a hypodermic needle. It injects medication under the skin. So dermis is the skin, hypo is under or below hypodermic. So hypodermis is below the dermis. It will attach the skin to underlying tissues and the organs, which for most of your body surface is going to be your muscles, your skeletal muscles. The subcutaneous layer or hypodermis will contain blood vessels and nerves in transit to more superficial layers. So meaning blood vessels on their way up to more superficial areas, not as deep, both blood vessels and nerves. And it contains what are called lamellated or Pacinian corpuscles. The Pacinian corpuscles were discovered by an Italian, I believe his name was Filippo Pacini, and he was the person who discovered them, so they are named for him. They detect pressure and are also very sensitive to vibration. So when you feel something and you run your fingertips across a surface and you can tell whether it's rough or smooth due to the lack of vibration as your fingerprints run across, those are your Pacinian corpuscles that are working to do that. So the benefits of multiple layers of skin. This allows for specialization. Adapted to fast turnover, meaning you can replace them quickly when lost or damaged. And this prevents the risk of damaging or getting an infection in underlying tissues. The dermis provides temperature stability, helps keeps us warm, and prevents dehydration, losing water to the atmosphere, and is capable of limited healing. So it can repair itself, but there usually is scarring. The subcutaneous tissue will insulate. That's where fat being stored in the adipose tissue comes into play. It can store fat for us to be used not only as insulation, but as an energy reserve. And it will anchor the skin to your body. So your skin stays put. It doesn't slide around. You know, an old sock will fall and work its way, won't stay put sometimes. Your skin does not do that. It is attached to the tissues underneath. Some of the sensory receptors that we have in your skin, they are sensitive to a variety of different stimuli, most of which are tactile or touch sensations. So light touch, pressure, vibration, an itch, or a tickle. These are all sensors that are particular to those kinds of stimulus. These sensory receptors are found in different layers. Superficially, meaning close to the surface, you will find Merkel discs and free nerve endings. You will also find Meissner's corpuscle, and there will be nerves on the hair root plexus. So down at the bottom of the hair follicle, you will find nerves that will basically tell you when your hairs are moving. And if you've ever had a small insect or something very light move the hairs on your arm, you felt that. And those are because of the tactile sensors at the base of your hair follicle. So even though your hairs are dead, they still can help transfer vibration through the hair shaft down to the root and into the follicle, where it can be sensed by the sensory receptors at the base of your hair follicle. And then the deep sensor would be the Pacinian corpuscles, again named for Dr. Pacini. And as I mentioned earlier, they are sensitive to pressure and vibration. So when you go to pick something up, and you get instant feedback on how hard to squeeze that object. You know, for example, if I set a brick and a styrofoam cup on the table and asked you to pick them up, one in each hand, your Pacinian corpuscles would instantaneously send signals to your brain saying, hey, you got to squeeze the brick this hard, but you don't have to squeeze the styrofoam cup that hard because it's lighter and it is softer and delicate, and you'll crush it if you apply the same pressure that you apply to picking up the brick. And this is feedback that your Pacinian corpuscles will give your brain, and then your brain will send signals to your muscles saying only squeeze this much. So, you know, you can program a robotic arm to pick up a brick and it will do it flawlessly thousands of times in a row. But if you substitute an egg for the brick, it's going to get messy. You have to reprogram the arm. We don't have to reprogram. We get instant feedback that tells us exactly what we need to do. And that is done through the Pacinian corpuscles. So let's take a look at the cube of skin. We get to see where things are again. So in this area, we see the free nerve ending. That's going to give us a sense of touch or pressure. The Meissner's corpuscle, which is right here. This gives us another light touch receptor. And then the lamellated or Pacinian corpuscle is down here. You can see it's deeper, and it gives us another. That's the vibration and pressure sensor. And then the other ones would be Merkel discs, but I do not see any of those. Let me take a quick look. Yeah, I don't see any of those in this picture. All right, and that's going to be enough for today talking about the dermis. All right, that's going to finish the lecture material for the dermis and subcutaneous layer. So log on out of here, and we'll talk to you later.